back to LogiSYM Asia Pacific 2021. Do you want to discover how to develop a robust supply chain in 5 steps? Well, you can do that right now through this presentation from Ryan. Now, Ryan Ching is the Regional Business Development Manager at Slimstock. And his presentation is called 5 Steps Towards Successful Supply Chain Collaboration. So Ryan, it's over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you, Rob. Thank you, everyone, for joining today. And I think good morning to everyone. And hopefully everyone is doing great today and healthy. That's the most important thing. Again, my name is Ryan. I'm from Slimstock. And I'm here to share a bit more about 5 steps towards successful supply chain collaboration today. Okay. So how to achieve a successful supply chain collaboration. So today's session, we'll be discussing about Slimstock Building Block Model, which actually is a series of simple steps for you to optimize your inventory in a very easy to follow sequence. So I think all of us do understand, right? The whole world is actually going through a very, very challenging time. The consumer demands are getting so volatile. The lead times are getting more irregular. I think recently the Suez Canal happened. So there's so many factors pushing the limits of the supply chain, and you really need to do something about it. So it's very essential for you to make sure what you do fits the purpose of adaptability to any supply chain shocks you may encounter in the future. So it is very important for you to have the foundation in a very proper order first, before we start thinking about collaboration with suppliers, before we start thinking about collaboration with customers. So what we're going to do is we're going to start from the bottom of these steps, okay, and work our way up, and with tips and suggestions to help you not through only this period, but beyond this period, beyond COVID-19. All right. So before we start, right, the 5 steps, I think there's some audience who have just joined us for the first time. So we are going to share a bit of Slimstock and our standing in this field. So this is actually very important because it's crucial for you to understand our capability, our people, our knowledge in helping companies to scale, to build their business even more. Okay, so Slimstock actually started in 1993, headquartered in Netherlands, and with a global business with over 1,000 customers and 22 offices around the whole world. So we do provide consultancy, training, and software in demand forecasting and inventory optimization. So with our software developed in-house, we can support any industry or any companies who wish to integrate with their existing ERP. And I think the most important one, if you look at the bottom left, we are very proud to share that we have a customer retention rate of 96% for the value we provide to our customers because of the promise we give them and we deliver to them. And we actually the longest established European provider in this space. Okay, again, we specialize in demand forecasting and inventory optimization by making sure you have the right balance in your stock holdings. To be honest, right, some of us may be wondering if actually your company needs such automation, needs such a solution. But in fact, as long as you hold a certain level of inventory value or a certain level of SKUs, you may want to wish to consider inventory optimization as one of the objectives because it actually relates to the scalability of the business. Maybe with manual or with Excel, there's a certain point for before the method starts breaking down. That's why this could be one of the objectives that you may want to look at. So many of our customers come from different industries, and regardless of all the industry they come from, we get the same question. What should I order? How much do I need, and when do I need to order? So these kind of common questions, we always face the same questions. So our goal is to make sure you have the right stock at the right place at the right time. Okay. So generally, these are the benefits that you can look at. We help our customer to achieve. Okay, 50% reduction in stockouts, 5% increase in sales and availability, 30% reduction in inventory, 30% decrease in waste. But do bear in mind, most companies have different business needs and different business processes in terms of managing their supply chain. So having said that, our teams are experienced enough and will help you to evaluate your inventory health and achieve your wish list, right, in your inventory optimization. So that's the gist about our company and overview of our company. Enough about us. So now back to the main topic, let's figure out how we can build the 5 building blocks for your supply chain. Okay, first let me start with what are the advantages of a good, clear supply chain collaboration. So generally, a lot of companies could benefit from improvement. Improvement in what? Visibility in consumer demand, inventory turnover, revenue, supplier performance visibility. On the other hand, you could actually benefit from reduction, but reduction in inventory level, warehouse costs, out of stock, transport costs, lead time. So these are actually few examples that companies could see, could observe if you set up your supply chain collaboration neatly. Okay. And especially in this topic, right? Inventory management is like a high risk spot. Okay, and you're actually cycling on a thin line called stock optimization. So that's why you need to be very careful. You need to be always try to stay in balance, because if you buy too much, if you reduce too much stock, you have stockouts on the left. Okay, on the other hand, if you buy too much stock, you end up with excess stock, too much stock on the right. So finding the balance is actually a very key component. Okay, Slimstock Building Block Model can help you to optimize your stock, to keep you balanced in this journey, okay, in this fine line throughout your journey forward. Okay, that's why we need to have the basics right. The first 4 steps has to be done internally first before we do it externally on the 5th step. Okay, we start from the bottom, work our way up, and we need to make sure the foundation is solid, right? To make sure the foundation is solid, to build the house on top, step by step. Okay, first, let's take a look at assortment, and we decide whether the item should be a stock or non-stock. Actually, this is one of the crucial questions by a lot of companies. They don't have a good business rule or a good indicator when should they need to stock and when should they not stock. Okay, so interestingly, study has found that at least half of stock obsolescence come from a failed product introduction by Harvard Business Review 2019. So using an example, right, if you introduce a new item and it has poor demand compared to your expectation, so you may end up with a lot of dusty items in your warehouse. Okay, the opposite can happen as well, because if the demand goes so fast, goes so much faster than expectation, you run out of stock and you will end up with a lot of unhappy customers. One good example, I think a few months ago, me and my friend, we thought of buying Sony PlayStation 5, right? So, but now because of the stock out events, we can't really get it. So that's why we need to make sure we have right information when the item is introduced, okay, to make sure that you really monitor it carefully throughout this product life cycle. Okay, so usually that's why we need to make sure that we understand what is a product life cycle first, and maybe the next slide I will show you a bit more of what's a product life cycle. So generally, all product life cycle can be observed at 3 different stages. It's like a human being. There's a new stage, there's a mature stage, there's an end of life. Okay, so new stage is the hardest stage of a product life. Okay, when you first introduce an item, do you have the right information? Do you have the right expectation? Do you have the right lead time? Do you have the right selling date? So all this information is crucial, and you need to be very responsive to the spikes and decreases in sales to be able to demand in changes, to be able to deal with the changes in demand. Okay, so this stage, it poses a very big risk if your product doesn't sell, especially if you can't return the stock to the supplier. Okay, so the next one is actually mature stage. It's kind of the most stable phase. Okay, in this phase, right, you can see a good historical information. We can use this to best optimize the EOQ calculation, the costs and services with a minimal risk of over ordering or stockouts. Okay, the next one is end of life stage. So in this stage, you start to see the trend is going down. Okay, you can observe a decline in demand. So similar to a new stage, okay, this stage needs to be very carefully monitored to minimize the risk of obsolescence because of the reduction in sales. Be very careful, especially if you have multi-echelon supply chain. If you have retail, you have local warehouse, you have regional warehouse, and potentially there are more echelon there. So you need to have a very good plan to phase out the items. That's why in most companies, right, exit plan is very important. for company to phase out the products. So one example, okay, maybe you could start to remove it from the smaller stores, okay, then start to look at removing it from the bigger stores, and finally sell everything through e-commerce in your warehouse. That's one potential way. All right. Okay, so the next question is, when should we stop and when should we start to phase out the items? Okay, so basically stock items are items that you want to have in your warehouse. Okay, with safety stock, with additional inventory to cover the demand. Non-stock item are items that you don't want to have in your warehouse. So you only purchase it when you have an open sales order. Okay, so using this 6-square model in our analysis, this is just a very simple matrix of stock and non-stock versus a product life cycle phase to help us manage the process. So when you move through different stages, okay, it has its own limitations, it has its own challenges, and it has its own KPIs. So if for certain companies, if they have the buffer to do it, it may be wiser for different departments to manage the different stages. Okay, so what kind of rules do we define throughout the product life cycle? So over here, you can see 1 to 6, right? The number represents different stages of a product through its cycle. Okay, and these stages may vary from different businesses and different products. Okay, so we do have different business rules for different stages. Okay, as for example, right, let's say we introduce a new item. Okay, it may be recommended to do it as a non-stock product first with a certain quantity. So this way, it will not be replenished until we know how it performs. So depending on the demand, the business rule might shift from a non-stock to stock. Let's say from point 2 to point 3. Okay, so that we do replenish in time, and that way we increase the service to our customers. Okay, once the demand starts to decrease, okay, from 3 to 4, the rule within this model determine whether the item should be going to end of life and whether should we put it back to a non-stock. So if we don't use this model, right, we might assume that item, okay, which are about to phase off, okay, are managed as mature items. So it will remain at 3 all the way, but in fact, the actual stage is at 5. So will this in a way result in excess stock or even obsolete stock for you? So that's why the correct sequence actually will differ from business to business, and in some cases, products to products. But the key thing is you must have a process, right? A business process that is very consistent and understood by the whole business. Okay, so over here, this is a stocking index. It's a great way to decide whether an item should be stock or non-stock. It's like an exam for the products, right? So it's basically a criteria. It's like a business criteria that should fit what your business need. Okay, rate is the score that we give to the item. Boundary is basically the target that we need to reach. Okay, so the next one, the table below is actually determines whether items should be stock or non-stock or falls within the transition element. So if let's say it falls within the transition, usually you might want to take it up with the sales and operations team to discuss what to do with those items. Should you still keep it in stock or should you not stock it up at all? So this process needs to be analyzed throughout the life cycle of the product. Okay, so let's run through a few of these example. Let's say I use the number of order lines. Okay, so the number of order lines, this rule dictates that if it hits more than 12 order lines per year, I'm going to give it a weightage of 20 points. Okay, but in the score, that means this product actually scored only 8 order lines per year. So that's why it resulted in 0. Okay, using another example, so if let's say I have more than 5 unique customers per year, I'm going to give it a 20 point. So in this example, there's 6 unique customers per year, which that's why the result is 20. So if you combine all the different business rules together, it will give you a total sum. In this example, it's 55, which falls within the stock region. Okay, so this is just an example, but you could actually put a lot more business criteria, a lot more business rule, and different boundary to work from for your products. So you want to automate this process without relying on human being. Okay. So now we have made the decision whether the item is stock or non-stock. Now we look at master data management. So we're going to break down this section to really understand the importance of the data and what kind of data are we looking at. First one, stock. Okay, stock accuracy is very important. Okay, if you have discrepancy in the physical and the system, this may result in inaccurate order planning. So accuracy of your stock counts and especially the timeliness of the information is very crucial. Okay, next one, transaction. So it's important to make sure all your transactions are captured accurately and timely. Okay, purchase order, sales order, and especially returns, because all this affects the planning. All right, next one, prices. Right price is important because we have constraints such as minimum order value. Okay, that we use the purchase price and not the historical value price. Okay, outstanding and future orders. So I think this is what a lot of companies would face, right? Make sure the purchase orders are always up to date. If you have all purchase orders that have not arrived, update it as accurate as possible. If you have order of 1,000, but the suppliers only deliver 950 and they don't plan to deliver anymore, please make sure it's closed properly. Otherwise, you may have backlog of 2 years purchase order that is not closed. Okay. Lead time. So lead time doesn't always stay the same. Over time, things may change. The improvement in reducing the lead time, there's potential changes in supplier. So it's always very important to review the lead time regularly. Okay, and of course, the rest of the master data. You have customers order, bill of material, MOQs. All this information needs to be right. But as I think a lot of us understand, especially in IT, we always talk about garbage in, garbage out. So sometimes we need to let the companies understand, right, what are the consequences of getting this data wrong. Okay, so let's use the example, product A, it can be sold uniquely, yet sometimes it can be sold as a part of bill of material for product B. Okay, missing this crucial connection, okay, this crucial information could end up with out of stocks, not only for product A, but you can end up with out of stocks for final product B as well. So this is one of the reasons why data accuracy is actually very important. All right. Now that we have decided on items that we need to stock, confirm on the master data that is accurate, let's look at the parameters that drive the calculation, the fuel that drives this engine. Okay, so parameters mentioned under the forecast, okay, will have a direct effect on the forecast, and the same as safety stock. So parameters under the safety stock will have a direct effect on the safety stock. However, since the forecast and safety stock are linked together, okay, safety stock will always be impacted by changes in forecast. So as shown as these are in the parameters in the middle, right? So they kind of impact both forecast and safety stock. So all this actually needs to be considered in your planning. And to be honest, this is one of the reasons why a lot of companies shifted from Excel to Slimstock itself. Okay. So with your updated parameters, you can kind of improve your service level and stock value. So over here, we kind of have a graph, okay, between service level and stock value, and this is the optimal inventory curve. Okay, so what we see here is company X. So company X has a valuation of stock order at $3 and 95% service level. So are they running at optimal level? And how should you bring this company X closer to the curve? Okay, there's one potential. Stock reduction potential with similar service level. Okay, so within the same service level, you can reduce the stock level. Okay, you can reduce the excess stock. Okay, second option, okay, service level improvement potential with similar inventory level. So at the same cost, you can achieve higher service level, okay, holding more of the right stock. Okay, so this is two potential ways you can try to bring the company X closer to the curve. But then, is it really option 1 or option 2? So in fact, right, it's not one of these two. It could be a mix of option 1 and 2, but it depends on the business decision on which direction to go. Okay, which option do you want to go? So when you follow the building block model, you can have a full control over this graph and where do you want to end up with within the optimal inventory level. Okay, so the next portion here, we have a classic Pareto analysis by cost of goods sold, okay, on the items that contribute the most by value to the business. Okay, next one, we have a XYZ analysis. It's a multi-dimensional XYZ analysis based on order lines on the products that sell the most in the business. Once we merge them together, it gives us a very, combined view of importance. Okay, AX being the most important, CZ being the least important. So what this actually gives us, right? It gives us the opportunity to focus on the most important area only. So 99% area usually is those areas that you want to look at. 90% areas are those usually is not so important to you. Okay, and we can have a very different service level differentiation for the different blocks too. Okay, so on top of this, we can go even further. Now that we have differentiated between cost of goods sold and order lines, we can fine tune it even further, okay, at per block basis. Okay, let's use the 99% example. So items are in this block, right? Items with low deviation in demand in the blocks, we can increase the service level with minimal risk. But items in high deviation in demand in this block, we can slightly decrease the service level. So as an outcome, you are holding less buffer stock on items that are less important within the block. Okay, or on the second portion, right, you can actually look at more expensive items get a lower service level than the cheaper items. Okay, you can fine tune the high expensive value items within the block, okay, by reducing the service level. So ultimately, you're looking at reducing your stock value compared to cheaper items with higher demand for better availability. Okay, so I'm going to use a monitor and a HDMI cable as an example. So usually when you buy a monitor, you need a HDMI cable. So what you can do right now is you can reduce the service level for a monitor because it's more expensive. Yet you can increase the service level for HDMI cable, okay, because it runs in higher volume and it's cheaper. So the outcome for this is actually you get a high availability for low cost item to suit for your customer satisfaction, while you reduce the inventory value from the monitor. Okay, so for the next point, okay, once the parameters are determined, what kind of processes do we need to put all these jigsaw puzzles together? Okay, now that we have determined what kind of lines to be, what kind of products to be stock or non-stock, we have looked at the product life cycle, we have looked at the data, we have the parameters up to date. We start to put all this together. Okay, first, we always classify the items by the demand pattern from its historical demand. Okay, it could be normal, it could be slow, it could be frequent, it could be irregular. So, in fact, there's so many patterns, there's so many demand patterns out there. And based on Slimstock, right, we have approximately 40 different formulas that caters to different demand patterns for further efficiency. So it's not one set formula that caters to all different patterns. Okay, so on top of these different formulas, you can look at using ABC, XY, and Z analysis. You should look at multi-echelon planning if you have. Okay, so the second point, create forecast and demand plan. So you need to adjust the item, you need to adjust the demand class to make sure you get the right forecast. And make sure you include the influences we discussed earlier, the trends, the promotions, the life cycle. Okay, the third one, calculating optimal order level. Okay, you need to calculate the most optimized order level, stock, safety stock based on forecast, taking into consideration about the parameters we mentioned earlier, lead time, deviation. So all these are stay at the article level. So the last one, finally, optimize the total replenishment. Okay, do you need to put a business rule to it? Is there any full truckload that you need to consider? Is there any minimum order quantity do you need to consider? Is there any economic order quantity that you need to consider? So all these formulas will start to kick in. Okay, from here, we have fully optimized the forecasting and inventory management for each class item. And to be honest, right, if you do it right, it will help you to manage by exception. So if you have 10,000 SKUs, potentially you don't look at 10,000 SKUs anymore. You only look at 20% of it, okay, which is exceptions and outliers. So it helps you or your company to focus on the more crucial items. Okay, so now we have set up the rules, we have set up the processes in a very optimized manner. Now internally we can look at how we want to strategically use this to optimize the supply chain externally. Okay, so first one, okay, we always look at potential one, do a ABC analysis on your supplier. Okay, we can focus on the key suppliers. So if you take a look at this graph, you have A, you have B, and C. What you want to focus is those suppliers that contributes the most to your spending, the A region. So usually these suppliers will take up 80% of your key spending, and they're only a small fraction of your overall suppliers. Okay. Second one, sharing KPI information with your suppliers, such as deliver in full on time. Okay, it can help you to improve supply reliability. And from this information that you get from them, right, you can bring this supply reliability information back to your team, and you can take it internally to improve your sales and operations planning. So from there you could have a more accurate lead time. You could have more accurate supplies for your sales and planning team. Okay. Last but not least, of course, you do consider your customers. Okay, you need to align the data with your customers as well. Do understand from your customers about their KPIs, their limitations, what kind of achievement or demands that they have. Usually now, customers are like the king, so we need to make sure we are aligned with them. Okay, so with this process all in place, we can create a more transparent relationship through its supply chain and by sharing data across supplier and customers. Okay, so we kind of covered a lot of ground today, but being practical, right? Where do we start? First, think about the building blocks, go step by step and repeat frequently. Okay, second, collaborate internally. Make sure you collaborate, share information internally first, because once you do that, it becomes easier when you start to share externally. Third, analyze and update data frequently. So if you focus or concentrate on the most important items by putting a process in place, it will help you to get a bigger chunk of the benefit for your businesses. Okay, so if you're still not sure of what to do, don't worry. We have an amazing tool, okay, to help you to set up your building blocks. We help you to set up your inventory. Feel free to drop us an email or give us a call, or you can actually drop by our booth or connect to us. So thank you very much for today's session. So that's all for my session. If you have any questions, do let us know. Or if you need a consultation, do let us know as well.
Brian, thanks a lot. Interesting presentation. I think a lot of the audience found it useful as well. Here's a question for you though. So, it's not just about the software. It's also about the company's mindset, where they are in their supply chain journey, if you like. So does Slimstock help with that part of it? The user engagement, the change management. Is that something that Slimstock also does?
So in fact, you're right. Yeah, to be honest, actually, a lot of companies face this issue in terms of change management. The company wants to move forward, but sometimes the mentality is actually slowing them down. So what we do is our consultants do that as well. When we come into the project, we understand their business rule. We want to simplify the process of adapting to the new methodology, because usually the whole business can't run if the user don't want to use it. So the most important that we find out, right, especially when implementing a software, is the user friendliness of it. So imagine if you can tell the user, if you are spending 10 hours per day or maybe 8 hours per day to do this manual work, we can help you to automate, to change these 10 hours to maybe 2 hours only, and the rest of the 6 hours can be automated by the software. So in fact, they get very happy and they get more engaged to adopting the software.
Okay, so you're saying that someone could learn how to use your software in just a few hours?
Usually,
not the full functionality, of course, yeah?
Oh, yes. So in fact, it's actually very simple. So what we do before we do the training, right? So we will do a training for the users. Then after that, we could do a simple setup for them to have a feel of it. then slowly they will start to try to align with what they do on a daily basis. So it makes their life a lot more easier rather than they're doing double work.
Okay, so we've got a question that has just come in from KS. And I think it's a good question, and it's a question a lot of SMEs ask. Is there low-lying fruit that SMEs can start with? Because, very often when you look at these sort of solutions, people believe that it's for a larger organization, multi-site, multi-country operation. What do you say to that?
Yeah, in fact, right, to be honest, now we're actually approaching a lot of SMEs to help them to adopt this. So to be honest, the mentality of this kind of software only applies for big companies. It's not so much, because now even SME need to scale up. Even SME need to be to optimize their inventory. So what's the middle point? So in fact, we do help a lot of different SMEs try to find the value. How much cost savings can we help them? Then from there, we can do a different arrangement for them to make sure that it's still within their pricing, okay, within their capability, okay, and of course to help them to scale up even more.
So the advice to KS's question is contact Ryan after this session, and he can help you with it. Yeah. All right, great.
Yes.
Ryan, thank you very much. Great to have Slimstock with us. And for everyone else that is on this session, please note that Slimstock does have an exhibition booth. Ryan, you'll be at the booth as well, right? For a while?
Yes, I'll be there.
Good. So Ryan, Ryan, so KS just said, great, he's already connected with you on LinkedIn, so I guess you can expect to hear from him. All right. Ryan, thank you very much. Great to have Slimstock, and enjoy the rest of the day.
Thank you, Ramon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.